All right, we are now just past 4:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Would like to welcome everyone to the Sustainable Cleveland January monthly meeting. Our topic this month is Circular Cleveland, focusing on the circular economy. Before I turn it over to Kathy to kind of lead us through this presentation, just a few housekeeping items. All of you as attendees are going to remain muted. We will ask if you have any questions, please post those in the chat box. We're going to save all questions for the end, but feel free to put those in the chat box. Both myself as host and all of our panelists should be able to see those depending on sort of who you send it to. This meeting is being recorded, and we are going to be sharing a link to the recording a little bit later this week, hopefully within the next couple days after the presentation. So with that, I will turn it over to our Sustainable Cleveland Manager, Kathy Len, to tell us more about Circular Cleveland.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you to all of you for attending our January monthly meeting and for your interest in Circular Cleveland. Just to kind of review what we're going to go over today, first we'll start with a definition of the circular economy and give some national examples. Then Divya Sridhar with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress is going to tell you all about Circular Cleveland and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant that they received. And then we're going to end with some examples locally of putting the circular economy into practice. So first, what is a circular economy? Well, looking at our current economy, it's a linear economy, and it's take, make, waste. You may have also seen this or heard of this referred to as take, make, dispose. What we want to do is move from a linear economy to a circular economy. And why would we want to do that? What are the benefits of a circular economy? Well, just some of the benefits are that a circular economy puts less pressure on our environment. It uses less of finite materials like fossil fuels. It stimulates innovation, increases economic growth by creating jobs, creates more durable products, and decreases greenhouse gases. There are several North American cities that are moving towards a circular economy, and this is just a few of them. These are cities recognized and partnering with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. But just last week, we were on a call with partners promoting Circular Chicago. So this is a short list of North American cities moving towards the circular economy. So the general principles of a circular economy are to design out waste and pollution, keep products and materials in use, regenerate natural systems, and generate local wealth and opportunity. So to put that into our elevator speech, our current economic model is linear and can be summarized as take, make, waste. The circular economy reduces waste and pollution by designing it out so there is no waste. It keeps products and materials in use by reuse and repair, and regenerates nature with programs like composting, no-till farming, and restoration. The circular economy also creates local wealth and opportunities. This is the butterfly diagram created by Ellen MacArthur Foundation that illustrates the circular economy for us. And this is, it looks pretty complicated. And one of the reasons for that is it can be complicated. And Ellen MacArthur was not the first one to come up with this idea or with a similar design. This is the design or a diagram from Cradle to Cradle in 2002 by William McDonough and Michael Braungart. And you can see that it's similar to the butterfly diagram. It has two different cycles, the biological cycle and the technical cycle. Now, materials in the biological cycle are those that are consumed and biodegraded back to nature. Materials on the other side, in the technical cycle, consist of man-made products and services that are used. And Cradle to Cradle was not the first time this idea was introduced. It was also introduced by Janine Benyus in 1997 with biomimicry. And of course, if you're familiar with biomimicry, biomimicry is inspired by nature, and nature creates no waste. So actually, this idea has been circulating for about 1 billion years. So again, back to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation butterfly diagram. One of the reasons we're using this is because Ellen MacArthur is one of our partners in the grant that Divya is going to talk about. If you'd like to hear Ellen MacArthur herself go through the butterfly diagram, there's a link here with a video for an interview with Ellen MacArthur as she walks you through the diagram, and it's just 10 minutes. Kristen has put this link in the chat box, but I also want to let you know that along with the recording that will be posted at sustainablecleveland.org in our blog, we'll also put all of the resources and more that we're talking about today. So again, there's the biological cycle and the technical cycle, and these are just some of the examples of each of those cycles used in the butterfly diagram. And what I want to do now is take you through some national examples of each of these cycles. I know for me that having an example walked through really helps me better understand the concept of a circular economy. So as I'm going through these examples, I want you to think more about the idea and maybe less about the company that I'll be talking about. Some of these examples may seem very familiar and some may not. And I also want to say that I'm going to be looking at my notes for these and reading some of it. I don't want to miss any of the important bits about these companies. So the first example is Reaply. And I should first start off by saying Reaply is a blend of the words research and cheaply, which is how they came up with that name. So Reaply was launched in 2016. It is a Chicago startup, and it's web-based software that helps organizations find ways to recycle, recover, and reuse unused items. So it's a way for professionals to share materials and resources with others in their industry. It connects research institutions, Fortune 500 companies, governments, school systems, nonprofits. It includes clients like Google. It started as a virtual marketplace for lab equipment in a university and then quickly expanded. Within Chicago, with the pandemic, Reaply has partnered with the city to help source personal protective equipment for nonprofits and for businesses. And they've also offered their services free of charge to the Chicago Public Schools. This is very similar to the Ohio Materials Marketplace, if you're familiar with that. The next example is about the fashion industry. So in 2018, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation launched an initiative called Make Fashion Circular. And they are leading international efforts to establish a circular economy for fashion, using business models that will increase the use of clothing, make clothes made from safe and renewable materials, and make sure that old clothes are used to make new ones. The reason for this is that globally, 73% of the materials used to produce clothing end up in the landfill or burned at the end of their life, while less than 1% of old clothing goes on to be used to make new clothing. So here's an example called Wear Next. This was a campaign that was launched in New York City in 2019. It was found that every year New York City landfills 200 million pounds of clothing. That's the equivalent of over 440 Statues of Liberty. So some of the biggest names in fashion collaborated on this campaign to save clothes from the landfill. So this was a citywide effort to tackle waste and pollution in the fashion industry. Every available drop-off point, which was participating stores and other locations with a total of more than 1,100 locations, was marked on an online map created by the New York City Department of Sanitation. And the last example under technical cycles is IKEA. IKEA has a goal to become 100% circular by 2030. They want to do this by extending the life of their products and materials, seeing them as raw materials for the future, and eliminating waste at every level. One of their goals is to develop products that can be useful throughout the changing lives of their customers. For instance, that might be transforming a baby cot into a toddler's bed, or making modular products where pieces can be added or taken away as needed as they adapt to constantly evolving needs. Their goal is to be circular in every aspect of their business, and they want to make it easier for customers to acquire, care for, and pass on products by repair, reuse, reselling, and recycling. Okay, now we're going to turn to some examples of the biological cycle. This is an innovation that I find really interesting, because I know that when I go to the grocery store, it's very annoying to find a lot of our fruit and vegetables wrapped in plastic wrap on a styrofoam tray. So this is Apeel. Apeel Sciences was founded in 2012 from a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with the goal of reducing food loss after harvest in developing countries that lack access to refrigeration. So what Apeel does is forms a barrier of an edible material on the skin or peel of fruits and vegetables. So every fruit and vegetable has a protective peel or skin that nature uses to keep it fresh. So what Appeal does is adds a little bit extra to the surface of that produce, and that slows water loss and oxidation, and those are two factors that cause spoilage. So Appeal produce will stay fresher 2 to 3 days longer. This extends the shelf life and ability to be transported with less reliance on refrigeration and a controlled atmosphere. So Appeal really helps to reduce food waste throughout every step of the supply chain. It also reduces that need for plastic packaging. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see talking about upstream innovation. And that was to remind me to tell you about a report that was recently released that talks all about different ways of reducing plastic packaging. And again, we'll put that link in the blog. Another innovative idea, actually an old idea, is beer from bread. It's been estimated that 30 to 40% of food is wasted, and that's throughout the value chain. And that's as consumer waste and also at every other step along the way. And one of the most frequently wasted foodstuffs is bread. It's estimated that 44% of all bread is wasted. Turns out, discarded bread can be used to replace 1/3 of the malted grain that's used in beer brewing. So an Englishman in London started a company by collecting surplus bread from delis, bakeries, and sandwich makers, and then incorporated that bread into the brewing process with malted barley, hops, yeast, and water. And this is where it doesn't take any special technology. This is a simple switch that replaces about 1/3 of the malted barley that's used for beer. It's estimated that roughly 1 slice of bread was used per bottle. And his team of 3 recycled 3.6 tons of bread in its first 15 months. And this has now been brought to New York. So we may be seeing this idea here with our local breweries. And the last example from biological cycles is the rice duck farm. This is, most farmers around the world only have access to a very small plot of land. But a farmer in Japan has found a solution that helps him make quite a profit on his small plot of land. By applying systems thinking, he's expanded his variety of farm produce and has eliminated fertilizers and pesticides. He has increased his rice yield by 20 to 50%. And as I mentioned, he doesn't use fertilizer or pesticides, and he's completely independent of any other outside inputs. So in addition to producing rice, he also produces duck eggs, fish, duck meat, vegetables, wheat, and figs. And this is how he does it. So first he has the rice seedlings are set into flooded rice paddies. Then he introduces ducklings. The insects that would normally feed on the young rice plants provide food for these ducklings. He then introduces fish and a water fern. The fern fixes nitrogen from the air, which is important for the health of the rice, and provides a natural substitute for the artificial fertilizers. The fern is kept under control by the ducks and the fish, and the ducks and the fish droppings provide additional nutrients that the rice needs. And in fact, the ducks have proven to be such efficient weeders that the farmer doesn't need as many manual weeders each year. And as well as controlling the insects and the weeds, the ducks' paddling feet oxygenate the water, encouraging the roots of the rice plants to grow. And then when the rice plants form their ears of grain, the ducks are removed so they don't eat that. As well as rice cultivation, he also grows figs on the edges of the paddy fields and rotates his rice duck initiative with vegetables and weeds. And so I mentioned this was introduced by a Japanese farmer, but it is being used in the US also. So those were just a few of the national examples, just to kind of give you an idea of what the circular economy can look like. So what we wanted to do next was to give some examples of our local economy and the circular economy that's already in practice. And, you know, we're all familiar with reduce, reuse, recycle. And we know that recycling is not the way out of this mess. It all comes down to reduce and reuse are very important. And we need to just start thinking about things differently. So we're going to start off with a local example from the biological cycle. And that will be Dan Brown is with us from Rust Belt Riders. Dan?
Hey there. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you a bit about Rust Belt Riders. We were founded in 2014 with the simple idea that food should never end up in a landfill. Unfortunately, in the United States, about 40% of all the food that's grown here will end up sent to landfill. And when it does, it emits methane, which is a very harmful greenhouse gas that accelerates and exacerbates runaway climate change. And so our effort is to provide individuals, organizations, and businesses with an alternative to landfills for food that otherwise would be destined for landfills. So we provide a variety of services customized to the needs of various organizations, as well as a number of residential services. So we have a community drop-off program that now boasts around 10 drop-off locations across Northeast Ohio, as well as a home pickup service where we can pick up your household food scraps right from your door on a weekly basis. And together there's around 1,100 households that are helping to divert food from going to landfills. And so we think that that work's vitally important. We think that food is a material that is sort of primed for the circular economy. The idea of the circular economy is really what sort of like birthed the inception of our organization to begin with. And not to mention that, you know, the types of jobs and organization that we are seeking to build are inherently place-based green jobs that are helping to actively combat climate change while also advancing the circular economy. So with that, we can go to the next slide, which is with most services, it's helpful to have products accompany them. So we 2 years ago launched a brand called Tilth Soil. So from all of the food waste that we collect, and we collect around 500,000 pounds of food scrap, or 250,000 pounds of food scraps each month, all of that material gets composted by us in partnership with Hertz Brothers and Independence, as well as community gardens across Northeast Ohio. We then formulate and make specialty blends of products to be used for specific applications ranging from seed starting to houseplant mixes, raised bed fill mixes. And it's really through the marrying of a services-based organization with a products-based company that we can both keep the cost of our collection services in check while also creating a net export of soil that can travel and help to shore up and strengthen our local food production capabilities. And so the other added benefit of tilth soil is that when used appropriately is actually a carbon sink. So healthy soils actually have the ability to store and sequester carbon while also minimizing the need for artificial chemicals and fertilizers. And so we're really excited about the work that we're doing. We're very excited about the work taking place around Circular Cleveland and are excited to see where things take us.
Thank you, Dan. We're now going to move to the technical cycle side of that butterfly diagram. And we're going to hear from Jessica Davis with Rebuilders Exchange. Hi, Jessica.
Hello, Kathy. Hello, crew. How are you guys doing? So first question is maybe in the chat, has anybody heard of Rebuilders Exchange? Okay, well, I see some familiar names, and some of you are customers and some of you are vendors. And Kathy, I would love it if Rebuilders Exchange was, in the work that we're doing here in Cleveland for circular economy, was shared on a national level. I can definitely see Rust Belt riders being up there and would love to join them in this national conversation. Oh, okay, I see Kristen knows about us because she helped plan this conversation. What Rebuilders Exchange does is we buy and sell construction material and architectural salvage, and we are a consignment-based model. I love the scrap industry, and we have a lot of great scrappers in the city of Cleveland, and they're part of, contributing to the circular economy in some ways by taking ferrous materials and recycling them. So I see the possibility of people making money and being a benefit to their financial and economic well-being by getting paid for non-ferrous materials like a door, windows, a bathtub, things like this. And it's just awesome. I kind of lose my breath even just thinking about how cool it is what you as a community in Cleveland have created and supported for Rebuilders Exchange. We made a vision, and then it's really each individual. There's over 300 vendors. We're only 3 years old, open to the public 3 days a week, and over 300 individuals in the city of Cleveland bring in material. And it's just incredible because you guys have boots on the ground and have access to materials, and we provide the platform for you to make money on that. So what it looks like is each month we pay out our vendors after we close the books for the month. And one of our significant achievements is we paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I feel like it's so awesome that we have this ability to connect people with resources. We have thousands of customers, and we did a balance of about 91,000 pounds of waste that we've diverted in our short little time of being open. We think that this model is definitely repeatable, franchisable, and we want to be in other cities, and would love to build this up to as perfection as we can get with the community of Cleveland and see where it takes us nationally. Down below, you can see a small example of what something might look like. There was these tiles that somebody had taken out of a house, and then a vendor just brought them into us one by one, bucket by bucket. We sold them, and there's probably about 2,000 square feet of tile. And one of our customers bought them and put them in, turned a closet into a guest bathroom, a small half bath. And you can see them refinished there. They're just beautiful. So that was a transaction that we just facilitated. We're matchmakers. People made money, people got a beautiful bathroom. It's a win-win. So I really hope to see you guys down this way, and thank you for being you in Cleveland. It's so fun to serve with you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Jessica, I would just note that I got a lot of messages to me privately of folks who had heard from you as well. So I don't know if you had seen those, but a good amount of folks are familiar with Rebuilders Exchange.
That's awesome.
Great. Next, we have Jim Sheehan with Ohio City Bicycle Co-op. Jim?
Hi, folks. I have been doing this for a while. The OCBC, the Bicycle Co-op, was founded in 2000 as a volunteer-driven bike education nonprofit. We started with an Earn a Bike program for kids in Ohio City. We're now located in a large industrial building in the Flats. We have bike repair classes. We give shop credits for people who volunteer, and they can learn hands-on while they're doing that. We sell refurbished bikes. When there's no pandemic, we have public shop use with help if you need it. We also work with schools and community groups to do riding and repair education in the community. For several years, we were the Safe Routes to School education provider for CMSD. The inspiration for OCBC came from similar efforts started a few years earlier than we did. Bikes Not Bombs is a great one in Boston, and Recycle a Bike in New York City. The challenges we have faced have been somewhat of our own making. Like we always used to say since we started, we'll accept any bike in any as a donation in any condition at any time, which is a pretty crazy inventory management strategy if you think about it, having zero control over an endless undetermined feedstock. So now we're rethinking that a little bit with some experience limiting that during the pandemic. So of course, COVID has been a big challenge, but also a good teacher. We also scrambled to create an online shop for bike sales. And since we don't have open shop now, we do take in repairs like most local bike shops. We may actually continue that since the local bike shops, who we have a really good relationship with, don't generally like to work on that kind of bikes that we do. It's also another area of mechanical training that we have not covered in the past, which brings us to our future directions that Kathy had asked me to talk about. Our most recent strategic plan had a very strong focus on workforce development and job readiness. We want to further develop those local bike shop relationships and explicitly train more bike repairers for climate change mitigation. So here are the numbers for us. In 2019, we scrapped a total of $462 worth of metal. That's figured at 5 cents a pound, which steel was down then. Most of it is steel, but we separate as much as we can. So that came out to 9,240 pounds of scrap. In 2020, the number was up to $652 for 13,000 pounds of scrap. We have this new point of sale now that will help us track that by type: steel, aluminum, stainless, brass, and irony aluminum. In 2019, we had a little more than 1,000 customers. We sold 236 refurbished bikes and brought in about $55,000 in retail income. In 2020, we had 451 customers with 203 bikes and about $58,000 in retail income. We also now have instituted a Pay What You Can program that's just started, and we've used $773 out of that fund for people who, for whatever reason, can't, well, without a pandemic, can't volunteer. Now we don't have any, very, very few volunteers. But since volunteers are such a big part of our work, I'll just note that we had in 2019, 214 individuals for about 6,000 hours of volunteering, which was a little lower than our previous averages. But then in 2020, for the full year, we had 91 individuals for almost 4,000 hours. But April to December, there were only 19 people volunteering, but they still put in about 2,500 hours, a lot of board members and real regular key volunteers. So to conclude, moving towards a circular economy, I think a lot about the relationship with local bike shops. The 3 or 4 used bike shops like us, and there are about the same number of ordinary bike shops that also sell some used bikes. I don't think we quite qualify as an industry, but we hope to see this grow and be able to train the many bike repairers who will be needed soon when bikes outnumber cars on the streets, and it won't be long. Just to watch. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. And lastly, we'd like to hear from Alexandra Brankov, who's going to tell us about Cofilia.
Hey everyone, well thanks for going through this whole meeting, and our last local circular economy example is Cofilia. It has to do all about coffee, so hopefully in the next few minutes I'll be able to perk up your attention because who doesn't love coffee? So Cofilia is a subscription service to local coffee shops that also eliminates people's paper cup waste along the way. And the way it works is that, there's a two-sided platform, coffee drinkers on one side and local coffee shops on the other. And Cofilia brings those two parties together in a better and easier way. And so two of our foundational pillars is, it being 100% local businesses, as well as being 100% sustainable. As a customer, if you're a coffee drinker, you love coffee, and, for instance, you'd like to get a subscription, the way it works is you go on the website, you buy a monthly coffee subscription where you choose how many cups of coffee you'd like to get, out in coffee shops per month, as well as choosing whether you prefer drip or espresso based coffee. Once you have your coffee plan, you buy the exclusive Cofilia mug, which if you look at your screen where my face is, I have the Cofilia cup right here. It's made of glass, the cup's made of glass, and the sleeve and the lid are made from silicone. And once you get your cup, you take it to any of the local coffee shops that are part of the Cofilia network to get your coffee subscription filled. And so as a result, I've created an effective positive reinforcement loop for cup use, because I've taken something that used to be just, a vessel to carry liquid in, right? A cup that does that, to something of monetary value, where you need your cup to access your subscription. And ultimately, there's money in this and on this cup, and that's why you need it. And if you don't bring your cup, you're not able to access your subscription, and so you might have to just pay out of pocket for that one coffee, but I bet you will remember next time. And so since launching our pilot, we launched July 1st, 2020, and since then, Cofilia has already saved up to 700 cups from going to. And when I say 700 cups, that's not just cups, that's 700 cups that, by the way, if anyone did not know this, all these paper cups, they all have a plastic lining. So on the inside, so obviously, your coffee, your drink won't pour out of it. And those cups are actually very hard to recycle in general. And so most of them just get thrown away in the landfill because it's very hard to remove that plastic. That also means 700 lids that, and those lids are also extremely hard to recycle because they're made of a petroleum-based plastic that just, it's one of those plastics that's really hard to recycle, and as well as 700 cardboard sleeves. So the cardboard sleeves, they could be recycled, but only if you put them, of course, in the right bins. And many times when you take that cup and you just throw it in the trash, it kind of goes together. So we've saved up to, 2,100 pieces of litter and waste that, could have ended up in landfills just over the past, 6-7 months. And one interesting, statistic that I always like to kind of put out there, I really like to make things very practical and realistic. So if you drink only 2 cups of coffee out per week, you buy it in a coffee shop, over a course of a year, you're throwing away over 100 cups just from drinking 2 cups a week out. And that's only for a 15-minute use, right? Or, 10 to 30-minute use, I guess, depending on how quickly you drink your coffee. But it's a huge shame how much actually our coffee habits are, adding to our landfills. So Cofilia is really trying to, help effectively eliminate that paper cup waste through this, coffee subscription, and ultimately, in the end, support local coffee shops and local businesses. And our vision right now is to, we have 11 coffee shops in the Cleveland-Akron area currently on the network, and we plan to, expand to hopefully have, every single local coffee shop in the area join. And then from here on out to move from Cleveland-Akron area to the next city, to the next. Hopefully, grow this into a regional or national brand that is known for standing up for local and environmental sustainability. So that's a little bit about how we've contributed to the circular economy in Cleveland, and it's really not hard, I think, to just figure out these simple solutions. And yeah, that's all I have to say. So Kathy, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Alexandra. And thank you to all of our speakers today for showing us some examples of circular economy in Cleveland. As Divya mentioned, we want to hear from all of you. This is a link to a Google form. Kristen will also be putting this in the chat box, and of course it'll be on the blog. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your ideas, what's already going on in Cleveland. And then I want to end, of course, by saying thank you to all of you for your interest, and to let you know that this is not going to be the only meeting or the only presentation that we give about Circular Cleveland. Throughout the year, we'll have more meetings, more opportunities for all of you to get involved in Circular Cleveland. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen to see if we have any questions.
We have just a couple of questions, and I want to be very mindful of everybody's time as we are pushing 5:30. The first one is for you, Jim. Are you opening back up to volunteer opportunities? And I'm sorry if you mentioned this already, but that was one of the questions that we've received.
Yes, we're just starting that now. With take-home volunteer opportunities. I'd hoped I'd had enough time to get the measurements and the numbers on about 150 pounds of small parts like brake levers and stuff that we sent home with people on MLK Day of service, and had some fun. Some kids got to learn to use screwdrivers and stuff, and it looks like we've got about 1/3 steel and 1/3 aluminum out of all that. So that kind of stuff will be going on, but we're not going to be having any foot traffic inside the shop until it'll be a while. So we're doing the best we can. We're also just now starting to open up with virtual, all remote, some live and some pre-recorded videos of bike repair classes.
Great, thank you. One more question for Cofilia. Has the pandemic affected your process at all, since we can't bring our own cups into coffee shops for now?
Yeah, so I would say that it just depends. Some shops, of course, you know, I have 11 shops that have joined, and that they're more than happy to take those cups, because I think they also realize that just because there's a pandemic, they can also stay safe while continuing to be sustainable. So of course, you know, I have shops that are, you know, they have no problem with accepting cups. Others want to wait off a little bit. But one of the things that I've discovered recently is that Starbucks, in their second largest world region, the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, Africa, they've actually started accepting reusable cups again, using a ceramic mug as the means to hold a reusable cup. So I am actually going to test that and, you know, try to pitch that to some of the other local coffee shops. But as long as, you know, the customers keep their lid, which is, you know, the most important part, and, you know, the barista washes their hands after handing over the cup, there really should be no reason for any transmission or, you know, health issues.
Great, thank you. There was a question about the blog. The blog will be posted within the next couple of days on the Sustainable Cleveland website. I'll include a link to that here shortly, so keep your eyes peeled. Anyone that registered for the event on Eventbrite, we will circle back with you as part of the follow-up, and you will get a link to this blog as well, which will include a link to the recording of this if you feel like watching it again. One question that we had that I can answer briefly was if there will be any opportunities for federal funding in the coming stimulus bills to support circular economy initiatives. If so, can Cleveland compete for these opportunities? We haven't heard anything specifically just yet, but I am very hopeful that there are going to be potentially some circular economy related, or especially on the organics diversion side, federal opportunities through there. And if we're eligible, I think Cleveland will definitely want to compete for those opportunities as much as possible. So we are now just over time. I apologize if we were not able to get to everybody's questions here. If you do have any questions or you just want to stay connected, please feel free to reach out to Kathy, and I'm going to include her email here in the chat. Take a look there. And with that, I want to thank Kathy, Divya, and all of our presenters for sharing more on Circular Cleveland and what a circular economy could look like here in the Cleveland region. Encourage you all to stay connected through Sustainable Cleveland's e-newsletter. Follow us on social media. And with that, we will end the meeting and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.